Good morning, everybody. How are you? DeeDee here. Today I am doing a mixed media piece for our Mixed Media Moods that I host with Jen Ingle. On the 20th of every month we release, or around the 20th, we release some videos, just full how-to tutorials. We just want to have fun and share our knowledge and experiment. We experiment sometimes. I'll be doing lots of things I kind of what do I want to say? Like, I've done them in the past, but maybe I want to hone them some more and work on them more. I want to be better at them. How about I'll put it that way. I want to be better at some of these things. So, also today's video might go a little quickly. We'll see how it works. I have squeezed about an hour and a half's worth of video down to 22 minutes so that it didn't go on forever, but also, I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm sorry if that bothers you during today's video. You could always turn the sound off and just sort of watch the process. I should get started because I'm missing some things here. I started with a wood panel, a birch wood panel, and I did a couple layers of gesso, and then I did some handwriting. I did some writing in the background, just kind of setting an intention for this piece, and yeah, I just wrote down my thoughts and kind of what was going on. And then, excuse me, I layered up a couple more layers of gesso and then I carved into them with the same idea. And so I have 2 layers of handwriting going on. And then I did a couple more layers of gesso. And I have out some, I have this, first of all, I have this chipboard poppy skeleton from Unwell Studio, and I'm not gonna lie, in the end I don't end up using it, so it's okay. I am trying really hard to embrace the fact that sometimes your painting has to be a little more intuitive, or you kind of just have to go with the flow, because sometimes your brain and your heart, they're just gonna want to get some things out, and I'm not super without being offensive, hopefully, I'm not super hippy dippy. Like, I don't discriminate against those who are by any means. I always think, like, just be yourself. Whatever makes you happy, that's what you should be. But I'm never like, oh, my heart loves this. I love, my soul needs that. Like, I don't think about things like that usually. But when I'm doing art, sometimes the art just takes over, and that's okay. And I want that more. I want to give into that more and kind of just go with the process until I'm done. And that is why this video lasted really long. It was like an hour and 38 minutes, and that does not include most of the drawing time and kind of pondering and thinking about what I'd like to do, etc. So keep that in mind while you watch today's video. I have gotten out some paints, a couple Blick paints, Amsterdam acrylics, and there's probably some golden floating around on my desk, some carbon black. I kind of keep that close by. And I'm just painting. I'm doing what I want. I'm adding in some color. I'm moving it around. I'm covering it up. I try a little mark making, and yeah, I'm just going with the flow here. So I have 2 colors of blue, and all my colors are based off the mood board, I should say. I didn't go for like direct influence from the mood board. I chose more of the colors and the patterns, the mark making, and then a lot of the distress that came from the mood board. Because at this point, I'm just playing with my colors and moving them around and figuring out what I want to do. And I'm mostly I started dry brushing, and then I went to wet paint on wet paint so that the colors would blend more, and I was really enjoying that, especially with these sort of 2 blues that I have going on. The one is very purple and kind of stormy, and then the other one is sky blue. So, and those are not the real colors. Like, I'll get them for you, but that's just what they reminded me of. And I pulled both of those colors off the mood board. So, I mean, it's fun. And the dark gray, and I have excuse me, some Liquitex gesso that I'm using for my white paint, and it's fun. I have moved past the wet brush phase, and I am now scraping paint and gesso. I I love scraping gesso. It really is like just that seriously makes me happy. It always adds the perfect amount of grunge, and it's wonderful. It's a base, so it lends itself really nicely to all the acrylic work that I'm doing. And so this time I decided to scrape some paint too, and I did some of that sky blue, and that was working out really nicely. And it just adds another layer of dimension that maybe I'm not always able to achieve with a brush. Now I did decide to leave in this part of the video where I alter the chipboard, and because this is another thing that I love chipboard, I love altering it. I love all the different things that chipboard can take, especially my Wow Studio chipboard, which is like super durable and super heavy duty. And I think it's the thickest chipboard on the market. We spent a lot of time researching and marketing before we moved into production. And I'm giving it 2, 3, maybe even 4 coats of gesso. Our chipboard is laser cut. And so it does have an ashy edge, so when you just start painting it, that ash is going to affect your paint color. But if you just paint it a couple times, the first time, or you can wipe the ash off of the edges with a baby wipe too. That is our #1 tip. But then, especially when I do this technique, because some of the gesso got on the back of it and it's like kind of grungy, and I don't end up using the poppy. Like I just can't get it to really blend in, and then it doesn't really remind me that much of the mood board either at this point. So in the end, oh, there's that grungy side that I really like too, by the way. In the end, I decide, like, I guess at this point I'm still thinking about using it, and I'm kind of tracing the shape, and this is a big experimental piece. Like there are a lot of things I'm trying, and especially when it comes to mixed media versus fine arts, you know, I mean, it's not that they're different. It's just that sometimes in mixed media, people are nervous, especially if you're coming from the scrapbooking industry. Oh, excuse me, that's the stove. Excuse me. Back to what I was saying. Especially if you're coming from the scrapbooking industry, sometimes people are quite worried to paint something or draw something rather than sort of scribbling and mark making and more abstract things, which is totally fine. And I love abstract pieces too, but I've just found myself getting away from my drawing and my painting, maybe still lifes and landscapes and portraits type background. I've been getting away from that, and I don't want to do that. I want to use everything. I want to use my whole arsenal. I want everything to be fully me. So I'll bring out my pencil. I did do some stamping with a date stamp and bringing back out some gesso, and I did use a pen to draw some lines, and that was my first attempt at that beautiful abstract mark making image in the bottom right hand corner of the mood board. And I don't know if I'm loving it yet. I'm still building things up and working in the process and sort of just doing the things I know I like and seeing where they're going to end up. And so now I've been looking at the mood board, and I'm realizing that it's quite a bit more grungy than what my piece has turned into at this point. It was still very pastel-y and sort of bright, but I wanted more grunge to it. And I had that beautiful dark gray. I did do a little splattering with that, and then now I've added a bunch of water and gone in and sort of muddied up the whole board with it, and it's a beautiful sort of chalky color, almost like it's just really, really, really nice, and it lends itself really well to the mood of the piece that I'm working on at this point. Alright, so I let everything dry and I'm coming back in, and now I'm just sort of, I think at this point I have officially resigned from the poppy. even though I haven't really told myself yet, I have, since I started kind of doodling in that area and I realized I'm getting like a really nice sort of cluster happening on the right hand side. And I have an eraser because not everything is going to be perfect, and I'm trying things out. It's great when you use non-permanent products to kind of experiment and play with, because generally you can pick them up with a little bit of water or an eraser, as long as you didn't like write too heavily, and it's fun. I like it. I love the graphite look, especially on all these painty layers. It looks really, really grungy and distressed, and you don't get that like nice, beautiful line that you do when you're just working on normal paper. At this point, I decided that, and I'm going to repaint these actually in the end, but I decided that instead of taking my painting over the edge of the board, I wanted the board to be these sort of muted, mottled gray tones, and I did enjoy it too, but I will tell you now, in the end, it ended up being a wasted step because at first I was avoiding black. I use black on everything. And so I was going for these richer tones and just trying to keep things lighter. But in the end, I brought in some black, so then I just end up painting my edges black. But this right here, I really want to touch base real quick with you instead of kind of rambling, because I'm using my grungy water to add another layer of grunge to this. And it's kind of a fun technique because I don't actually know what's in that water. There's some paint, a little gel medium, but it's mostly permanent things. So when it dries, it should be permanent, even though it's mostly water. Isn't that fun? Yeah, I really like it. And then at this point, so I have officially, for sure, abandoned that chipboard piece now. I just put it to the side and I'm kind of having fun with what's on my board. And that's okay. Abandonment is totally fine. I am going to use that chipboard piece in my art marks journal with Ray Missingman. So you keep an eye out for that. But I'm going back and forth between gray and white, and I'm kind of washing out the background of this area and bringing forth, making this little cluster of distressed stuff the forefront. And at this point, it started to resemble, well, first of all, something that I didn't want it to resemble. I'm just going to say that, right? And I had some words, and I thought, man, how did I end up with this on my project? And then I thought about it overnight, and I decided that I would turn it into something else so that I could continue using this piece. I spent a lot of time on it, and maybe at that point I needed it to be something. So it's just how my brain was working at the time, and I decided to draw in some sort of flower-like petals, and it is what it is. I mean, at this point, I'm kind of going for it, like I said, and just seeing what happens in the end. And I don't know if I even love it now at the end. I don't know, but did have fun making it, and I just went with stuff that I wanted to do and supplies that I wanted to use, and that can be okay. Not every I need to remember, and I want to say it out loud so that you remember it too, that we have to practice. Not everything can be a finished project or a finished piece because we're not perfect. We need to keep working on our techniques. And I think with social media and Facebook and Instagram and all this direct interaction that we have with these people, we always want to show our best and put our best forth. And so we're kind of automatically drawn to the idea that everything needs to be a finished piece, and if it's not perfect, it's not okay. But I'm trying to remember that we have to practice. We have to try things out. It might take me 500 panels to get a flower that I like. I don't even like drawing flowers or painting flowers. Not like this anyways. But at the time, I was so like focused on getting something pretty and done and finished for our mixed media moods that I sort of lost sight of where I could have stopped, or maybe covered over this, or something. But I had worked so hard on it and so long on it. I think I was up to about an hour at this point. And that's, I mean, an hour, I say an hour of film time. But if there's an hour of film time, there's actually like 5 hours of time that I've put into it, thinking about it and kind of sketching things and testing things out before doing them on camera and stuff like that. So, anyways, I'm kind of rambling now at this point, but don't forget to practice. Don't forget to try things out and test stuff out. And it doesn't always have to be pretty. It doesn't, I promise. Just keep trying, testing your tools and testing your supplies and figuring out what happens. Okay, so that's what, in the last minutes that I've been rambling, that's what I've been doing. I'm going back and forth between graphite, a Stabilo Marxol. I am really sorry. This video is a little bit kind of wonky today with my voiceover. It's 7:15 and I am making cinnamon rolls for Gabe. That's my 7-year-old. So as I was saying, like I'm kind of going back and forth between graphite and Stabilo, and I got out my carbon black paint. And I have a Sharpie marker that I'm using, and I'm just playing with this flower and trying to make it kind of stand out and be this center focal piece when I didn't really need to. I could have stayed in the abstract phase and played around some more with that, but it's okay. So I did some more handwriting. I was thinking like I wanted sort of like a long column coming down from the side. And then I wasn't really loving the way that turned out, but I did want something there. So I added some water because it's graphite. I added some water and then I kind of rubbed it into the background and then it was really faint and I did like that. And I'm doing some splattering with that carbon black, getting some bigger drops. I'm gonna dry everything off. And then I have, this is a fine liner, and it's made with 50% carbon fluid black acrylic by Golden and 50% airbrush medium by, well, either Golden or Liquitex. I buy both. And now I'm drawing from that mark making that's happening in the bottom right-hand corner of that mood board. And I loved everything about it. I loved the color. I loved the lines. I loved the dots on the black crisp top. Kind of, I think it's like the left-hand corner. So that's what I'm moving towards now. And I'm going back towards some mark making and things I want to do. And this is the point that I decided to paint my edges black. So I'll just paint around those real quick. As quick as you can be painting some edges. And I love too the contrast of this black now that's brought the piece forward. It's really intense and I like it. And I I know that I kind of go back to black a lot. I really enjoy it. Sometimes you have to stick with what you know, what you're good at, and sometimes too those small things are going to make your work recognizable against everyone else's. And I'm just using, I think it's about a 1/2 inch flat wash brush to take that acrylic all the way around the edges, top to bottom, left to right. And this too is like a super easy way to just add sort of a built-in frame to your piece, especially if you're working on these really tall wooden boards. These boards are like 1.5 inches thick. It's pretty nice. And even at the end, I think there are still some pieces I would, some things I would still do to this. Like I might go back in and do some more mark making in some areas. But I was getting really, the video is getting really, really long. All right, so I have 2 Sharpies here, and the reason is because my extra fine Sharpie is dead. It's all out of paint. I need to order another set. So I got out my fine Sharpie and I made a pool of the Sharpie paint, and I'm using the tip from my ultra fine and just dipping it in that pool of paint, and it works perfectly. Okay, so here's another one of those instances I was telling you, like I'm experimenting and just seeing what's happening. So on the left hand side of the dots, they were a lot closer together, a lot tighter. And on the right hand side, I spaced them out some more to see which one I liked better. And it's super easy because I could just look at the painting and I could hold it up and check it out. And then whichever side I liked more, in this case, I liked the ones that were spaced out a little bit better. I liked how it looked and added to the composition. So I painted over the side that was a little further or a little more dense, and then now I'm just going back in and re-stippling, redotting a little further spread apart. And the paint there is a tiny bit thicker, but you can't notice in the finished product. I know and you know. No one else has to know. And now I am starting to like this piece. And even coming back like the next morning, that helps too. But I still think I'll probably go back in and make some more marks, and we'll see. I say that, but I don't go back to my work that often, and maybe that's because I always want to keep trying new things. But as I was kind of staring at this flower, then I thought that, you know what, it's not super prominent. Like I keep getting drawn to that beautiful mark making at the top. So I'm going to kind of grungy up around this flower and give it sort of a funny kind of cool shadow with the graphite and hopefully bring it to the center of attention. And then I'm going to glue on this Sari ribbon to bring in that fabric, that fabric-y feel that's happening from the mood board. And I tied it into a little bow. And that's it. That's my piece for our Mixed Media Moods February edition of 2018. Thanks so much, you guys, for joining me. Pop over and check out Jen. She made the most amazing journal. I am dying over it. Seriously. You got to check it out. Find our blog post. You can link up. Find our Facebook group. Check out what's going on. Lots of people are joining our mood boards and posting really great artwork, and we love their interpretations.